Thank you all so much for being here, for contributing to this workshop. For Mike Goodchild and Dan Swee and others who have worked on the word convergence over the years, the word provenance was a word that caught my attention. I like to, certain words will catch your attention, and that's the one that I'm going to mention. Also, interoperability. And not data interoperability, but workflow interoperability. If you get the chance while you're visiting here, those of you from out of town, please go see the Kindred Spirits painting in Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. It's a beautiful work of art, and it's many, many tens of millions of dollars. And there's a very established use of the word provenance in the art community. The word itself goes back 725 years, give or take, and Old French. And that painting, without its provenance, that artifact without its provenance, could be potentially a lot less money. It might even be considered a possible fraud. And so a lot of effort goes in, and they're way ahead of us in terms of establishing provenance. I really appreciate what's been said about the human-centeredness of what we're doing, identity of the individual and the important role that each person plays in convergence. I can pull out my smartphone right now, and instead of looking for find my friends, I could find my relatives based on the principle of lineage, which is another form of the word provenance. The two words are related. I worked with, basically, David Lanter had one of the first GIS patents for his dissertation research at University of South Carolina, 1992, a project called GeoLineus that has some capabilities that our modern desktop-based GIS cannot do anymore, that basically allowed taking two different workflows, merging them, condensing them, those types of things where you can basically, we don't use that anymore, but we potentially could. One of the things that we're getting more and more involved in are the small unmanned aircraft systems, less than 55 pounds here in the United States. And I would venture to say there are a number of remote pilots here in the room. We have a system here called the Phoenix LiDAR system that captures, it's got 16 lasers on it. And this diagram is based on the World Wide Web Consortium Provenance Incubator Group's concept of what provenance is. Provenance, and I didn't really define it, but provenance in art would be the complete ownership of that artifact, the complete ownership history of the painting, everything that was done to it, the restoration, also possibly artistic and other even political influences. For this case, we're talking about all of the things that agents, the entities and the activities that took place in order to produce the artifact, which is a adjusted unmanned aircraft system point cloud. So it's adjusted, it's been corrected, but all of this that goes into that, look at you've got down here on the bottom, you have the team, you have software that goes into it, you have the system itself, and all of the details of that. So there's multiple levels of granularity. And then up on the upper left there, OPUS, the online positioning user service from National Geodetic Survey. That feeds into this as well, and a cloud-based system called LiDAR Mill. But you could do it all locally in this software, or you could do it on the cloud. And this is one representation of that. How do we handle this issue in our GI science education and in our research? And here at the university, we have a system that we're working with the students, where each student can replicate the other's workflow. And I'm using the replicate word from the computer systems community, not from the National Science Foundation publication. I'm going to go ahead and side with the computer systems folks. We're using computers. Let me ask them what they call it. But the words get reversed. And so maybe we can clear that. Maybe we don't have to clear it up, but there's just so many different terminologies. This would be an exact replica in their terminology, of the work using the same inputs. The reason we're doing this with a local area network is because the drones that we have are collecting 4 gigabytes per minute of flight, and that's prohibitive for upload to a cloud-based service. So you need to be able to work locally. And I've done some work with comparing, just the different desktop packages like ArcGIS Pro and the local ArcGIS desktop, and there's interoperability of the workflows between those two platforms using a multi-user environment. Finally, geoprocessing workflows. Geoprocessing you can think of as the core of that would be a process, an execution of a computer program. Geoprocessing, of course, in our domain, GI science. Workflows would be chaining those together, and provenance would be a record of what we did or a record of what we might do in the future. This brings up some tremendous possibilities in terms of privacy, intellectual property, and some of those difficult human-oriented questions that how do we deal with this? If we have a record of what we might do, we can explore the privacy implications and at least know what those might be and get closer to what those might be before we publish a workflow, before we publish data that may have privacy or intellectual property implications. The environment is complex. If you go to the cloud, this is LiDAR mill, there's cloud-based processing, there's desktop-based processing, and we're still stuck in trying to figure out which one to use, again, because of the overload and the size of data being collected. You just can't upload it fast enough. So I really look forward to the discussion and the whole rest of this workshop. Thank you so much.